Hey everybody, welcome to our webinar on surviving Q4 as an information security specialist, whatever your various flavor that might be. So we are joined today by our good friends, Brian Johnson of 7 Minute Security and Alysia Horn from Asylas Security. We'll get started in just a few moments to give folks a chance to file on in.
I don't know about you two, but this is webinar number trace for me today.
Oh, wow.
Do you ever have a day where like it seems to make sense that you would just, I get in my mind that it would make logical sense to have a stack day where it's just like all the things that I'm doing a webinar in the morning. Oh, another one come up, slide it right in afterwards. And then it's just, Zoomtopia from 8 a.m. to like 4 p.m. today. And then I'll tell you what, I'm feeling a little bit delirious just because of the amount of webinars, but then also you can't really see, but I got the password cracking rig back here ripping on some hashes, and I don't want to interrupt the job, but it is 2,500 degrees in here right now. So if you just all of a sudden see, like one of those, then, please just do my slides and tell everybody I wish them well. Okay.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You need something to cool you down. But unfortunately, did you hear, Brian, that the guy who invented the fruit smoothie passed away last week?
Did not hear that.
Yeah, he was buried on Friday. Wah, wah, wah. That was a dad joke. Get it? Buried on Friday.
Oh, my gosh.
Hey, I get it.
Yeah, right.
A lot in the news lately. You may have missed significant events like that.
Right.
I totally missed it, but my wife let me know yesterday that the Canadian Prime Minister just got reelected. I thought she was lying, but it's Trudeau.
Yeah. For one of my webinars this morning, I have a section on like how to pick good passwords, and then at the very end of it, it's a picture of a little meme thing or whatever, and it says, "Hey, I hear you can't use beef stew as a password because it's not strong enough." Strong enough. Whatever. And it's funny because whether I'm doing it over Zoom or doing it in person, the reaction is the same, which is pretty much deafening silence. So this webinar I was doing over Zoom, and I said, I can feel that you guys are dead quiet right now, and that is the appropriate response. You should. I can hear the eye rolling from here, and if there was an eye roll button, they should insert that into Zoom, right, where you could just put a picture of somebody groaning or rolling their eyes, but
there probably is an emoji. I'll have to get all the young kids to get me schooled up. So
yeah, my
daughter got her first phone, and she's getting very, very handy at texting via emojis. So
yeah, I've seen some transcripts as well. It doesn't seem like words is maybe their priority as much as images, and I'll be like, "Oh, is this inappropriate? What does this mean?" And it's like, "No, it just means I'll see you after school." I'm like, "Okay." lot of pictures in there. Some didn't look appropriate, but
awesome. Well, hey, we're a little over a minute past start time. I know everyone's time is valuable, so I'll go ahead and get us started here. First of all, welcome to everybody. I'm Shawn Scott with PlexTrac, as you can probably tell by the purple theme background, purple theme shirt. But thanks for everybody for joining us today. We all good? We can see the slides up. Does that look good?
See it. You're looking sharp.
Perfect. Awesome. Well, thanks again, Wes, for joining us. And we want to take a little different track today, and maybe take a step back from talking about the usual stuff that we talk about, problems we see in the industry or new solutions, and kind of just talk about ourselves a little bit, and talk about how the next 3 months tend to be some of the most stressful that anybody who's in the information security experiences, and it happens every year in, year out. So today, who our panelists are, we've got myself. I'll be moderating primarily and picking the brains of Brian and Alysia. It's been a couple of years since I've had to deal with some of the same Q4 pains as they're dealing with every day. But I've been with PlexTrac here for a couple of years, and yes, I do hate reporting. That's how I wound up joining. I'm a former PlexTrac user and now on the team. But Alysia, I'll pass it over to you to do a quick intro.
Yeah, hey everybody, I'm Alysia. So COO at Asylas. We're cybersecurity, risk consulting. We also do some privacy work here in Nashville. Majority of the work that we do is penetration testing, incident response, risk assessments, all those fun things.
Awesome. And Brian, how about yourself? Everybody knows you, right?
Hi, if my mom's on, she does. Hi, Mom. Brian Johnson with 7 Minute Security. And yeah, we're a cybersecurity consultancy. So we do a lot of risk assessments and pen testing and training. And the name 7 Minute Security comes from a podcast we're still doing. The episodes aren't 7 minutes anymore, but it comes out every week on Wednesdays. And coming at the end of this year, we'll be up to 500 episodes. So that kind of boggles my mind. And you put my extracurricular activities, and I will tell you, nothing I don't think I've done in my whole security career was as stressful as last weekend. I had to sing at a wedding where I was asked to perform an original song about the bride and groom who I had never met in my entire life. So that was 10 out of 10 stress, and anything else, anything else I think in my life is going to be, well, besides a few things are going to be less than that. So I'm excited to be talking with you about security, which is like easy breezy, cool as a cucumber, right?
Well, if you've never had the pleasure of listening to one of Brian's podcasts, he does begin every segment with a song. So I'm sure that was old hat for you, Brian. And if you splunk around the internet long enough, you'll probably find a beautiful song he wrote about a year ago for PlexTrac. I love that. Well, all right, so what are we here to talk about today? We'll get down to the defining the problem, and then we're going to talk about solutions straight from the horse's mouth, people who've been doing this for a long time in the trenches, and what they do to help make their lives better, less stressful, and live to see the turn of the happy new year. And then we'll be happy to field any questions you might have, do a little bit of QA session. We've got this scheduled for an hour. Don't think we'll go that long. Probably won't go that wrong either, hopefully. And we want to make it fun and exciting. Not going to be a slide deck here. So I'm going to go ahead and stop the slides for right now. And I'll kind of kick off things here and really just kind of scope the problem. So when we first started talking about, why, what can we do to help people? And we really wanted to get our arms around, well, why is Q4 a problem? Is this folklore, or is it true? Are we really busier in Q4? It seems that way. So I started doing a little research and actually stumbled across a 2015 survey by an accounting company, and they determined that about 71% of all U.S. businesses are using the calendar year as their fiscal year. And so that seemed like it was a good thread to pull. And, Alysia, what have you seen? Is there a relationship there between the fiscal year closing out and why people are really trying to pile on the projects for you?
Yeah, absolutely. So everybody has regulatory requirements, audits that they have to do. And a lot of times the security work just kind of gets pushed to the end of the year. Folks will be going through and realize that checkbox that they haven't checked yet is the security testing or security assessment. Also, a lot of times companies, have PCI requirements where they have to test twice a year. And so engaging with those folks towards the beginning of the year, you have your first test mid-year that kind of pushes the second towards the end of the year. So we've definitely seen that from the requirement side.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know, Brian, I think you do a lot of stuff that's really more driven towards the folks that are really trying to get that, pen test for pen testing sake, true security versus regulatory requirements in your line of business. What have you noticed about how Q4 is related to people's use of your services?
Yeah, I think you hit it on the head with it gets to this time of year where all of a sudden it's, oh my gosh, I checked the couch cushions and I have enough money in the budget to, think about security. But I also have an unsupported just tinfoil hat theory, which is during the summertime, people take off, they take their big vacations, they go to the cabin, they give themselves a few months of buffer to not install the latest, EDR or do the big upgrades, right? They come out of that season, it's time to send the kids back to school. And then it's a combination of like, oh my gosh, I have, all these things I didn't do. And oh shoot, we need to have that pen test as well. And so starting about now, things just go bananas, and people, are really pushing us hard for that, signed, sealed, delivered, wrapped up in a bow by 12/31, and so we end up, putting sleep and family and priorities on the shelf until first week of January.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. I come from a DoD background, and I thought this was something that was unique to the Department of Defense or the federal government. But as I've made my transition into the civilian space over the last 3 years, I've realized that budgeting cycles aren't a whole lot different. If you get a pot of money, if you get budget for discretionary purchases to enhance your overall security posture, a lot of the times you've got some leeway in how that gets spent. Maybe I want a new solution. Maybe it's it's that fancy new breach and attack simulation that's all the rage right now, or maybe it's just an upgrade to some existing infrastructure. But if you don't spend your budget, what I found is that a lot of organizations will then, well, hey, you didn't spend all of what we gave you last year, so we're not going to give you as much next year. So you kind of have an incentive to find good to have projects. Have you seen some of that, Brian and Alysia?
Yeah, for sure. And with that bucket of money, I think, from a consultant's point of view, I think it's our job to, if someone says, hey, what can you give me for this big pot of gold, right? It's easy to kind of get dollar signs in your eyes and be like, oh my gosh, we could give them our full suite of services. But I think the responsible thing we need to do is kind of back up and really say, what is the right thing to do, right? With this year's budget money, we could do everything under the sun and give them the full suite of pen testing. But, you start talking to the organization, you might find out, this is going to be sort of a shooting a fish in the barrel exercise, right? Like they have no MFA, they got passwords, 5-character minimum, right? No complexity. You kind of glean out what the environment is like. And I think to learn about all those things and then just be like, oh, heck yeah, we'll do a full internal pen test when you're going to be domain admin by morning snack time, right? That doesn't really serve the client very well. So I think we need to, even if they've got a big budget, why not make like a multi-year plan, right? Like let's come in and just do a vulnerability assessment and maybe, a few of these other things. That's great. That's going to give you a whole bunch of things to do for the rest of the calendar year. And then you've already got us in your pocket for next year. Now we kind of up the game a little bit. And now let's, add pen testing or let's add social engineering. And that's what we try to do is get customers away from just the, whether I've got money at the beginning of the year or the end of the year, get them away from that mentality of just like, okay, well, here we go. I got this bucket of money. I'm going to make one big purchase, try to get them out of that and say, like, let's think about this for the long game, not just, what's going to check a few boxes through the year, right? Like, let's make a long game maturity plan for your security program. How about you, Alysia?
And I completely agree with Brian. We do the same kind of thing. A lot of times we have folks come to us and they want a pen test because that's the cool thing that they've heard about. And same kind of thing, like I could write your pen test report today without even touching your network. So what we've offered a lot of clients is to assess them against our most common pen test findings, 10 to 15 things. Let's just go in, see if these things are in place. They're probably not. Go ahead and do all these things, and then we'll come back and assess you. And similar thing, pair it with the Vuln scan, get them to start remediating, hit the ground running before just spending a bunch of pen test dollars.
Alysia, I know the one thing that Brian, a little metric he keeps internally, I love it. I think he first told me about it 2 years ago, is a mean time to domain admin. Right.
Yeah, TTPA. Yeah, is that a thing? Is it a thing yet?
If your estimated MTTDA is low, maybe you're not quite ready for the full scope of services yet at this time. So, yep. Okay, so we got it. We got structural reasons, we got human reasons why everybody pushes things off to the fourth quarter, and we all get busy. But what's the real world impacts here to us, to our businesses? Obviously stress, we all feel it is bad, but why should we care, and why should we really put some effort towards trying to make our Q4 betters? Maybe start with you, Alysia, and some of your observations.
Yeah, absolutely. So Q4 being crazy, one of the impacts is burnout. We're seeing it across the board in security, in IT. It's been a tough, past year, especially. And we see folks, they've got options out there. They don't necessarily have to stick with the crazy, stressful environments. They can go hit up, an enterprise job that it's kind of the same thing day to day. We've experienced in the Nashville environment, these IT consulting companies as well, just losing people left and right to go, just get a more comfortable job that they can work from home every single day. And you can't blame them for that. So that's certainly an impact that we've seen.
Yeah, absolutely. Brian, I know you've had some experiences with with people you've worked with that have also just had some real world issues as a result of some of the stresses of your environment. Anything you want to comment on there?
Yeah, I'm just, and I'm probably late to the game in this, but you hear so much through your Twitter feed and newsletters you subscribe to, right? That they say you really need to take care of your mental health. And if you think about going to the gym and how much time and effort and money we spend tuning up our physical bodies, they said, hey, you really ought to give your mental well-being some TLC as well. So I'm late to the game, but just in the last couple of years, been doing like the Headspace and the Calm apps, right, and really trying to dedicate time to that. In fact, I have one other I just wanted to mention. What is that called again? I think it used to be called 10% Happier, and now I think it's just 10%. And just being straight with you both, I just kind of, maybe it was the way I grew up, but I just thought, it's that kind of a sign of weakness. Like you're not strong enough to take care of yourself. And now that I've been doing this and dedicating time to it, I realize I've been an idiot for my whole life, because I don't know if I could measure and say I'm 10% happier now, but like it's kind of smoke and mirrors and magic to me a little bit. But I do find like taking time out and no matter how busy the Q4 calendar is and how much engineering we have to do, just putting that slot on my calendar and protecting that and saying, I'm going away for a half hour just to do these exercises, which may seem super simple, like just focus on your breath for 2 minutes. And on paper, you're like, that's dumb. But to come out of that 2 minutes and be like, wow, I actually feel slightly elated. That's amazing. So I've been trying to, without preaching to, friends and colleagues and coworkers, of just, holding that to high importance. Don't wait until you are so burnt out, right, and don't want to see a screen. And, so I've had colleagues who then really, they kind of drop off the radar. Like they quit their consulting gig and have to like really recover before they're ready to come back and be functional in any job. And so I try to steer people away from, seeing the warning signs of the crash and burn and treating it before you're, really deep into trouble.
Yeah, and I would think that even if they don't up and quit, people who are feeling that sort of stress, that can't be good for putting the best foot forward for the business. Alysia, I know you've got people that are coming into work every day. What are some of the concerns you have if they're under this level of stress as a manager, as an owner of a business, for your business and your brand?
Well, when you're doing work for clients, when you're doing your best work and when you're not doing your best work. And when there's so much going on in Q4, that can affect, your reputation, your relationship with your clients. It can have a big effect, and that's not just for this existing project, but for any projects going forward. It can affect those relationships as well.
Awesome. So we kind of talked a little bit about the problem, the impacts of that. So let's start talking about some solutions, right? And we've kind of touched on this a little bit. But what are some of the things that you can do in your discussions, or you do in your discussions with your clients when you're doing planned engagements, to help steer them towards scheduling that is going to spread the work out for you? Brian, what are some of the things that you try to do to cajole your clientele into a better scheduling rhythm?
Yeah, it's been certainly a journey for us because I think we're a people pleasing group, and so no matter how many people, that those first couple of years of business, didn't matter if people were coming in December 15th, wanting to open a new project, engineer it, get the report, bill, invoice, everything by 12/31. We were saying yes to it. I think part of it for us has just been putting on our big person pants and being like, well, we understand that you have an urgent need and you have this money to spend. We'd love to help you, but I kind of feel like, and maybe Alysia, you've been through this too, where a client has been all like, our ink is almost on the paper. Just let's get this scheduled right now, and we've had to say, kind of, I'm sorry, if it's not signed, it doesn't really exist. We can't put you on the calendar. And really drawing a deep line in the sand right there, because we've had it happen too many times where we're right at the finish line with them to get an engagement going, and then something comes up. And now we've shuffled everybody around, and now we have an opening in our calendar. So I think it's kind of twofold. One, for us, just, again, putting on the big people pants and being more firm with clients. But then also just, pushing pretty hard to just be transparent with the clients and say, listen, this is a super busy time of year for us. We're trying to give everybody the best work we can. And if you can't get this signed by, X date, we can't hold this date for you and squeeze multiple projects in at the time, because we're not going to be doing our best work for you. You're not going to get a product you're happy with. Everybody's disappointed, and that has been some difficult conversations that happen. I don't like having those, but for 99% of the time, they're like, oh, I get it. And I appreciate that you want to do your best work for us. And they're willing to work with us on that. I think that's some things that helped us.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned that, Brian, because obviously my line of business is definitely different. We're making tools. We're not doing the services. But I got some great mentorship about a week and a half ago. He's like, the most important thing for your business at this stage is knowing that it's okay to say no for the right reasons and being comfortable with that. Because otherwise you're just going to be chasing bad revenue that's going to have negative impacts down the line. Alysia, what are some strategies that you've used to try to manage and spread things out for yourselves?
Sure. So we've certainly been learning the same lessons that Brian was learning about the same time, making sure that we have the paperwork all signed and complete before we schedule. One of the things that we do as well to try and get folks to schedule earlier in the year is offering services where they may have gained efficiencies by doing multiple assessments at once. So say their risk assessment, their pen test, if we're doing other projects like that for them, oftentimes we'll say, so we can just come in at once and get it all done. We can schedule those together. There'll be, a small discount for those efficiencies gained. And that's been something that some of our clients have been really interested in if they didn't have a specific date where they had to complete those assessments.
Yeah, absolutely. And have you ever looked at or thought about, potentially even instead of compacting things, the opposite solution of, hey, can we have an extended engagement timeline where we do the things that are necessary right now to meet your regulatory requirements, but we deliver other services later?
Yeah, absolutely. We do that all the time. Pretty much in December, a good amount of time is spent negotiating with auditors. Do we have to have the completed report in hand by the 31st? Can we do the testing in December and do the report, have the report to you in January? Is there any way that we can break up this engagement so we can get what they absolutely have to have by the end of the year, but also not, drown ourselves?
Mm-hmm.
And also one of the things is getting them results more quickly. If they don't have to have that report, maybe just those findings to start working on remediation. We do use PlexTrac for that. Put a little note in there for you guys. With our clients, we'll give them access. And as we hit those, medium, high critical findings, we'll add those in so they can go ahead and start remediating. If we've got to get it turned around quickly with that remediation and then validating afterwards.
Awesome. Well, we can do everything in our power to try to get clients to schedule when we want them to, but at the end of the day, that's not always going to happen, right? And
That's
no
right.
matter what we do, we're going to have we're still going to have some stress here because of those systemic reasons, right? Until we get the regulatory agencies to change, which I can't do that. So, I'd like to maybe shift the conversation to some of the tools or some of the processes, things you can do. And obviously, these aren't necessarily just applicable in the fourth quarter, but things that you have found that have really made you more efficient as information security testers. Brian, maybe I'll let you start and take the control.
Awesome. You see me okay?
Yeah, looks great.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I just wanted to share a couple things we use as a consultancy that just help us manage calendars, manage tasks. We do a lot of shipping out these little Intel NUCs to do pen testing and different assessments. So found some cloud and commercial services that help us do that a little easier. This first one is a proposal building tool. Actually, Alysia tipped me off to this one, so got to give you a thumbs up for that. But it just makes it super easy for us to write up templates for all the different things that we do. And then when a new client comes along and needs a proposal, we can just sort of snap that right into an outline, which is what you're seeing on the right of the screen. And pretty much it'll go through and change the names, change the company names, and it's out the door in minutes. So just as an example here, if I've got an assessment and I want to add a risk assessment phase to it, I can just search for it. I've got my template pre-written for that. I just drag it up where I want it to appear.
Oh, wow, boom, that's sharp.
Yeah, it's cool. Populates, changes the name to whatever the company is, example company. If I was, if Shawn was my contact, everywhere in the assessment where Shawn's name appears, it does a search and replace on the fly. So that one is very, very cool. I can't remember. Do you remember, Alysia, what they charge us for that? Is that a couple $100 a year, something like that?
I don't remember at all.
I can't.
I think so.
Probably
it's worth
well
it.
Less than,
yeah.
Probably well less than your charge per hour of your work, right? So
yeah, right. Mm-hmm. Share file or having some portal where your clients can upload, you can securely send files back and forth, I think is a great idea. Used to be that, used to work for consultancies where we would just say, just, email us a bunch of zips and PDFs and all that kind of stuff. And I wouldn't say that's maybe a good look for a security consultancy. So I'd recommend something like this instead. We maybe we're overkill and tinfoil hat wearers, but we are security people. So we like to just require that whether you're a 7MS employee or our clients, that we've got multi-factor turned on, since we are exchanging, in some cases, password hashes and passwords and those sorts of things. And you can, get into the default settings and crank them up to be whatever you want. I can't remember what the defaults are, but I think it's worth looking at, how much do you want to bug people by having them rotate passwords? Could you instead have one really long password and then, enable multi-factor authentication? Those are some things to play with. The big one, though, kind of the big tip I'd recommend you at least consider is putting a retention policy on whatever bucket you use for your sharing of files. So, I always like to think like a security person of, okay, I use this service, that service, the other service. What if that service got breached? What would the exposure look like, right? So, gosh, if somebody got into my share file, there would potentially be, dozens of clients and very sensitive information there. So we now just have a new blanket policy that those files get nuked. They self-destruct after 60 days. And that just makes me sleep a little easier at night because, not that Citrix has, never had security problems, but if they ever have one in the future, you kind of limit your exposure that way.
We're actually huge share file users here at PlexTrac. Obviously, all of our clients are people like you. And so we do have a lot of sensitive data going back and forth. We get, especially in the testing phases of new features, people, sharing things with us that they want us to import to the platform. And this has been a godsend for us, absolutely, because Honestly, it's easy to use for the recipient, and it's super easy to use for us. And I know that before we had that, it seemed like I would spend 10 minutes getting credentials set up and logged into everybody's little pet security, secure share file sharing service. But it's a good look too. I think that, when people see the Citrix banner, they know that they can trust it as much as they can trust it, any sort of, web file sharing, right? I mean, it really has become, I think, the standard. So, you don't have a whole lot of, well, I'm not sure I trust that, and so I'm going to push you to a different solution. So just in that, the time savings alone of having your users accept it as a trusted mechanism and not doing the whole back and forth has saved us a tremendous amount of time.
Certainly.
Something we do we use ShareFile as well is anytime we send them files, we'll attach them in ShareFile and direct the client to ShareFile to get the file, so we know they've been in there and that they can go and upload. Because we found if we email an empty discovery template, they'll just email it back. But if we start it in ShareFile, it usually makes its way back there.
Nice.
Here's a caution, a new user mistake that I've seen more than once, unfortunately, with ShareFile. The body of the text, if you're sending an attachment, is not encrypted. That gets sent. So it's only the attachments with your emails. So
good tips. Nice. Yeah, really good. Let's see what else. Oh, I wanted to talk a little bit about Rumble, which I've been super excited about. This, it could be used for a lot of things, but it's essentially like a inventory tool, so you can use it on your internal teams. I recommend it to clients because it's very affordable. It's actually created by some of the folks that used to work on
Fyodor, right?
No, I'm blanking on his name, but Metasploit, HD Moore. There we go.
That's right, HD Moore.
Yeah, this is his company. Right. And so there's a free version. So we kind of run this in our lab. So you just install like a little agent on anything. Raspberry Pi, they've got clients. The scanner part runs on pretty much anything, and it'll go out, does like a full Nmap scan with screenshots, and then in a cloud console lets you see what you have. And then in the search assets box, there's all sorts of different searches you can do and combine with different terms to drill into what you're looking for. So for example, here, here's like, all these different things in my lab environment. If I only want to see the assets that are currently live, I can search for alive :T for true. And maybe I only now want to see server operating systems. So I can add a type of equal to server. And then there we go. And it's kind of cool. They pull so much data back, but one that happened to be helpful for this demo is you see the column with some red in it. That's the operating system end of life. So, we've got some boxes in the lab running long in the tooth Ubuntu, but yeah, that's very cool. And then there's a screenshot tab as well. So if you want to go, oh yeah, where is that Nessus instance that I have? You could search just on a specific port, and oh yeah, there it is. It's on box X. So kind of getting back to good security hygiene, right? And CIS top 10 or 18 or whatever they call it now, knowing what you have so that you can protect it. I think Rumble is really sweet for that purpose. To show you a couple more here, I know Plex does work with ingesting Nessus files, Burp files, all that kind of thing. This Namixsoft piece of software I just tend to like because I've used it forever, but I think it's $75 a year per license, and we'll ingest a Nessus vuln scan and then quickly pretty up some pictures and slice and dice some valuable intel for you based on that scan. So it'll paint you a pretty picture and give you a vulnerability breakdown, but then it'll also give you like, hey, if you've got this ginormous enterprise and you just want to know maybe where to focus some of your efforts first, well, check out this report that shows us, the hosts that have the most criticals and highs. Those might be some of the first places to give some attention to. You can also get into, okay, well, what are my most common vulnerabilities? Like, if I make one fix or maybe I push out a missing patch, where is that going to give me the, the greatest remediation yield, right, for those efforts? Or if you just want to see, hey, I want to look at this purely from an attacking point of view. Where are all my exploitable vulnerabilities? Like, where would somebody on this network be able to, potentially very easily point a tool at a system and just take it over? Okay, well, maybe I start with, my hosts with the most vulnerabilities and kind of branch out from there.
Really just speeding up your methodology. I mean, none of this is voodoo or rocket surgery. It's just ways that instead of having to, to dive into the raw data, to just really save yourself the hours of analysis of, these discovery type scans.
Yeah. Yep. Exactly. Makes it easy. Just a couple on the, Dropbox build. So I know a lot of you are in pen testing and vulnerability scanning business. Maybe you're pushing out your own or shipping out your own device that is the customer is going to plug in and you're going to do some combination of things. Where we burn so much time all the time, or where we did was, we get the box back from the client. Now, trying to be good security people, we format the drives, we reinstall VMware, and then we got to stand up our VMs, and we're, it's about a half-day ordeal, right, to get these things fully turned around. So there's some pretty simple PowerShell commands that now help us provision these VMs more quickly. So for example, in PowerShell, this invoke web request command is your friend. So if you want to have a script that all it does is download a bunch of the tools you have as a standard package on your Windows VM, it's a pretty simple syntax. You just use invoke web request. And in my case, I'm going to download Python 3.8 because I know I need that for some tools. And then I just feed it a flag of out file and where I want to save that file, and hit go, and off it goes. So I've got, probably 60 lines, right, that are invoke web request, but that way it's not me going, okay, let's Google for the tool, let's right click save, let's unzip, let's put it in the right folder. No, you can do that all very quickly with the invoke web request. There is one, and I will, I don't know if you send out anything, Shawn, after this is done. I can send the exact code for this, but one of my favorite little snippets I think I found on whatever that is, Stack Exchange, Stock Exchange, Exchange, whatever it is. There's a great, there's just a great one that goes out, installs Chrome, updates it, and then sets it as the default browser. And I don't know why. I mean, I know computers have been around a long time, but they still seem like joyful little boxes of magic when you can do that, right? That's about the only time I open up Edge is to download Chrome and set it as the default, right? And then this one, let me see. I think this is the one where, what I ran into with our pen test Dropbox one time, I thought I was going to check myself into an insane asylum, was because I went to remote into a customer that we had like a 3-year engagement with, and I found that my remote software would not accept my credentials. And I knew they were right, but no, all it said is credentials not good, credentials not good. Found out after way too much troubleshooting that by default in Windows 10, my pen test user was set to expire. And once it expired, my remote software did not have the facilities to allow me to change it. I was therefore locked out of a box that's 3 hours away. So what I add to my little startup or VM provisioning script is this simple WMI command. And all it does is set my pen test account to never expire. It's a small thing, but I'll tell you, it may save you from checking into the loony bin. So there we go. Pen test user will never expire. There we go. Password never expires. Super cool. And then I think this is like the last one for me. This simple script that just prompts you to rename your system once it's provisioned, because I didn't do that back in the day when I was first building a lot of these. So I ended up with a lot of systems out there just called desktop dash, 5 or 6 random names. And it's like, oh my gosh, is that for this client? Is it for that client? So that's kind of the cherry on top of my provisioning script is name it something that makes sense, right? Client company.com or client X. And yeah, hopefully those help. Just get your Dropbox up and.
Hey, Brian, I know that you have been, this is not something new that you've been doing. I think for, the number of years I've been following you, you've been, kind of collecting tools and tips and tricks to save you time, and you've been sharing them with your community. You have those on a site someplace, don't you?
I do. Well, yes, I do. Sorry, you gave me a nice meatball and I didn't even swing at it.
Swing and a miss.
Yeah. If you go to 7ms.us, that's the website for the podcast, and just search for the word Dropbox. I think we have a whole series called DIY Pen Test Dropbox or something like that, and several episodes and some show notes that I think highlight a lot of these things that I just showed you, because a lot of it was really fun, but a lot of it was very frustrating. And I love the idea that maybe I've saved even one person from that expired account, or from searching 20 tools and downloading them all by hand, because man, that's for the birds.
Alysia, you got any tips and tricks that you use just as general time savers, whether that's for on the information security side or just your business in general?
Yeah, first I need to make a note about checking those accounts to make sure they don't expire, because we haven't run across that, but now I'm afraid we will. No, so we use a lot of those same tools that Brian's mentioned. Something else that we use that helps streamline and save time is Basecamp for all of our project management. So a lot of the consultants, subcontractors that we use, we'll spin them down for certain projects. And it's nice to have a project management tool that has all the steps of the engagement. We created a pen test template, a risk assessment template, that has everything from our beginning communications down to the end of the project with invoicing and sending our NPS emails. And that's just to make sure, especially during Q4, when you've got so many things up in the air, that none of those little steps get missed. So that's been really helpful to us, as well as I mentioned that NPS tool. We use Delighted. I don't know if you guys have heard of it, but essentially it's free for just one email template. So what we do, we have one, and it's just, please rate your security services on a scale of 1 to 10. The folks get an email, they can click a number, and then it gives them a box for feedback. In our onboarding calls, we tell them to expect that email because it comes from Asylas at Delighted. And initially people thought it was phishing and wouldn't answer. But once we told them to expect that, now we have clients, rating our services, providing feedback. And so we don't have to go back to each and every person and ask, what went well, what didn't. And we do try and do that, but it gives folks kind of a way to feel anonymous, but provide feedback. And that's been really helpful too.
And do they have some sort of a web interface where you can go that consolidates all that data so that you're not having to sit there with an Excel spreadsheet and maintain that and figure out what your score is?
Yeah, it keeps it's got a bar at the top, and it gives you a percentage for last 30 days, last 90 days, whatever it is.
Awesome.
And it just kind of lists all your scores and comments. And it always makes you feel good when you get, good feedback, folks sending that in.
Well, I had two that I would like to share, things that have changed my life. The first one is, it's actually more of a process. And it goes by different names. It's easy to Google, but it's a methodology for maintaining your inbox. It's called Inbox Zero. As PlexTrac has grown, one of the unexpected and undesired attributes of that is I think I've been targeted by every marketer on the planet. But aside from that, also, I probably touch 10 different types of information systems. There's different levels of notifications, alerts, things like that, and while you need to invest the time to tweak that sort of stuff, there's things that you just want to have the record of, right? And so using a system that you actually take a couple hours out of a Saturday, invest it, and the goal is to keep your inbox truly at zero, right? To give you the tools and the methodologies so that you're not dropping the ball. Because if there's one thing that'll waste time, it's dropping the ball on an email, right? Because not only then you got to make the customer happy, you got to make your boss happy as well. But without a doubt, the single biggest tool that I have found that has saved time, and it's adopted widely at PlexTrac, is Calendly. And Calendly, it's a very inexpensive service, but what it does is it integrates with whatever your email service provider is, your calendar provider. We're G Suite shop here. But instead of playing this game of like, hey, I'd like to have a meeting next week, I'm available from 2 p.m. to 4:15 p.m. on Tuesdays and alternate Thursdays. You can set events, you can set times that users can schedule those events with you, self-service, and it's persistent too, right? So obviously we've got ongoing relationships. We've been talking with you two for several years now, right? But it's nice because if you ever want to get on my calendar, we don't have to communicate about that. You can just click a link, find a time when I'm free, when I've already set up, when I know that I'm available to accept those calls, and then it deconflicts. As I add things to my calendar, it just deconflicts that. Without a doubt, single biggest time saver and relatively inexpensive. I think it's honestly only like $5 a user a month or something simply like that. So not bad at all. So awesome. Hey, I would be remiss. There is one more time-saving tool that I wish that everybody, if you're not already a user, you would check out. And obviously, that's PlexTrac. The whole mission of PlexTrac is to save information security professionals' time. We're there to aggregate your data, make your reporting easier, and that's the end of the commercial on that. So,
can I just extend your commercial for like 30 seconds, just because I recently worked with some of your team there on our internal pen test template, which we kind of like to. We sort of like to tell the pen test in a narrative, so not necessarily like criticals up here, then highs, then mediums. It's more like, hey, we did protocol poisoning first, and that got us this, and that's maybe a high. But then that led to this, which is a critical, and we had all these things we wanted to add and have like a section for accolades and all this stuff that really didn't necessarily fit in PlexTrac, but your team, working with us, like, Kung Fu and what is it, Jinja? Yeah, Jinja.
Jiu-jitsu, yes.
The word Jinja was thrown around a lot. I looked at what that raw stuff looks like, and God bless the folks on your end that know how to do tricks with Jinja, but they made just the most awesome template for us, and it's saved just tons of time. It's almost to the point of like that Proposify tool I was telling you about, where I can just about sit down and in just a very short amount of time almost have a final version of a pen test template or a pen test ready to QA with our team. And that's huge, because the pen testing is super fun. That's a high, that's a rush. And then the reporting is typically not, but it is much, much more enjoyable with PlexTrac. And Shawn did not coax me to say that. I say this on my own free will. I think, yeah.
That's what someone would say who has a gun to their head.
Right. Yes. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, hey, Alysia, in your talk about tools, you mentioned Basecamp, but you kind of tied that into when you bring on additional help. So one other solution I think that I'd love to explore today is outsourcing. When you need to add capacity, at some point, there's too much work for what you've got. Outsourcing is an option. So, can you maybe share some of the experiences, lessons learned, tips and tricks on when outsourcing works and when it doesn't work?
Sure. So we found what works out really well for us as a business model is having a bench of subcontractors with different security specialties that we can, as I mentioned, spin up, spin down as we need them. Some of these folks are full-time consultants, just working for themselves. Some of these folks have full-time jobs at an enterprise that get bored pen testing the same company every day and just want someone else to attack. And what we've learned, some successes and fails, I guess, I try to work the project around their schedules. So, for example, for the risk assessments, we've always got folks that it's their full-time job to be doing consulting work, because we know that they can go and meet with clients and spend lots of time during the day. meeting and discussing with folks. For our pen testers, I try and work around their schedules and be a little more flexible. With our clients that may not have a super tight deadline, instead of, let's hit it hard for a week and get everything done, maybe we do testing for 2 weeks. And that allows our pen testers, testing during the day, some after work. Lots of people now have flexible schedules. So working with them and with our client to give some greater flexibility that allows us to use those folks with full-time jobs. And then also bringing in some folks that are looking to get into the security world. There's all kinds of people trying to get into the security world, and pushing onto them the things that are more entry level, with kind of vulnerability scanning. We've got someone doing that, and phishing campaigns, things that are easily documented, which is something that I know nobody wants to talk about documentation, but I do try and have a lot of our processes, kind of the basic processes documented. So when we bring someone on, I can walk them through it, but also show them this document. So when you forget, it's all right here, and I don't have to spend time going over that again.
So it sounds like the preparation you're doing in Q1 and Q2 to lay the groundwork for the successful and rapid onboarding of that help is really the key to your success.
Absolutely.
And then getting all that organized in something like Basecamp so that they can just log in and they're off to the races. Awesome. Mm-hmm. Brian, how about yourself? I know you've done some work with some outside folks.
Yeah, I'll just echo what was just said, because we've found it. I used to hunt for unicorns, right away, like trying to find Alysia, right? Like somebody who can kind of do it all, like do the engineering stuff, but also be totally client facing and do back-end stuff and do everything. Kind of gave that up and realized, what you said, Alysia, that there's a lot of people who, maybe even aren't in security, but love the idea. They hear stories of these great phishing and vishing attacks, right? And they're like, oh my gosh, my personality totally fits that, right? And that's something I don't enjoy doing. That makes me want to throw up in my own mouth. So if I can delegate just the set of calls to an organization to try to talk people out of passwords or what have you, that's awesome, right? Everybody wins. They get some security experience. They're not like full-time on our staff. And then I get to, free my time up for things I do like to do, like pen testing. And also I like what you said, Alysia, about talking with the client. Can we extend our testing window a little bit to give us time to balance between multiple projects? Because I know some of the larger shops, they just run like a machine, right? It's start your pen test on Monday, they kind of finish wrapping up everything Thursday, they've written the report Friday morning, and Friday afternoon you have a readout. And it's just, some clients expect that. Then they're like, what do you mean you can't turn it all around in 4 days? And we just have to tell them it's we're different. It's a different, ball of wax for us, but we really want to do this well, but also have the flexibility to work on your stuff maybe at night while we do something else we're scheduled for by day. And in most cases, they're happy to extend the time window if that means fitting them up earlier in the calendar, right? So I think in the end, we all win.
Awesome. Well, hey, we have talked about why does this time suck, right? What are the structural reasons why Q4 isn't much fun? We talked a little bit about some of the process things we can do, trying to influence scheduling, talked about tooling, both on the information security side, but also just on the standard business tools, things to make us more productive. Where I'd like to end today, and I know, Brian, you talked a little bit about this when you discussed the use of some of the mindfulness tools that you have, but just other things that, once we've done everything we can to mitigate, the amount of work coming to us, it's still going to be more than we want. And that's just the nature of the beast. And if it wasn't, we would probably take on more work because that's the kind of people we are, right? We've got this certain threshold of pain. And if we don't hit that threshold of pain, we sometimes almost feel uncomfortable about it. I don't know, I personally do. But what are some other things, that you do? My gosh, Brian, seriously, like I always tell people, like, if you ever want to know how to manage time, figure out whatever secret sauce that Brian Johnson's drinking, because he's got like a family and he does things in the community, runs a podcast, he's got a business. I have no idea. He always still seems to be happy. which I don't understand. But maybe talk some of the other techniques that you do just to not just Brian, obviously all three of us here, but things that you've done that as we get older we found that are helpful, that are ways of relieving stress in our lives.
Sure, I could just speak to a couple, and then let Alysia go. I wish I had a secret to get more time out of the day and that kind of thing. It was recommended to me a couple of years ago, and it's common sense stuff, right? But my wheels turn slow. I'm an old dog. I can learn some new tricks, but sometimes it just takes me a while. And someone said, you really just need to figure out knowing your mind and body type, what time of the day are you the most productive? Is it are you the about to go to sleep person, but then you've got a bunch of creative ideas? Even though it may stink, you may end up tired in the morning. Write that stuff down, when it's fresh. And if you need to work, at odd hours just to really get in the zone, I was told you'll be so much more productive in that time, rather than be I have this whole day to do, this PowerPoint, and still at 4 p.m. you're just, you've got the title slide and that's it. So I think I've found I tend to work well just early in the morning before the kids even get up. I get about an hour and a half of, I think, really good work done. And then I kind of ease them into their day. And then I'm warmed up, and then I have a pretty productive most of the rest of the day. And then about 3 o'clock, I start to fall over. But that's something that's helped me. And then the last thing I'd share too is, especially for us in Minnesota, where we have death winter come upon us, any day now. And with COVID and everything else, I've found great stress relief and mental health in VR. So I'm a gamer a little bit, in that I have one of those VR headsets, and there's lots of physical activity and fitness apps and games on those that really do. It sounds stupid to probably people listening, but a lot of them do provide a very, very good workout. And if I've got a block in my calendar, an hour between meetings, I'll try to go hit that for 45. And that also is turns down the stress, turns up the energy. And I feel like I've got some gas to get through the day. Not that kind of gas, Shawn, but energy gas. Yeah.
You mentioned something about writing things down. And, one of the things that plagues me is I get things that I've got deliverables, right? We've all got deliverables. And I think it's almost like a defense mechanism when you've got important things that your brain just wants to keep on stewing on them. It's almost like, hey, if I do enough write operations on this disk, they'll never be able to remove the data, right? I'm just going to burn it on in here, right? And I often find that honestly, just writing things, or even just slacking myself, the DM stuff, it's okay, I've gotten that out of my head. I've put it someplace that I know I'm not going to forget it. I can allow myself to stop thinking about it and actually engage in the conversation with my wife or my kids, or get back into the conversation, because for the last 20 minutes they've been talking and I've been thinking about ginger, right? Whatever it is. Just on that note, before I forget, because I'm definitely a email myself quite a lot during the day. Don't forget this, don't forget that. One thing that's been awesome that has helped me is if you're a Dropbox user, there is an app. It used to be called Dropvox with a V, VOX. I think now it is called Recup, RECUP. And it's a voice recorder that integrates with Dropbox. You can bring that app up, hit record, and say, hey, what about doing this with the podcast? Blah, 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 blah. Hit stop, and then it drops a MP3 file into your Dropbox. So then I've kind of got this folder of things I need to re-listen to and then turn into items on Basecamp or Monday.com or whatever it is that I use. So that's how I capture that stuff, and then don't stress about the next day, I was going to remember that one thing, because I will not. So, Alysia, how about yourself?
I do similar. I don't do audio, but I use OneNote. And on Sunday nights, what I'll do is open up a new page for the week. And I've got, Monday through Friday listed. I'll go through Basecamp, go through my email, and just schedule, Monday through Friday, drop tasks for, I'm not going to think about this until Thursday. I'm going to work on this on Tuesday, and try and plan out my week. So I've got it already. And then for those things that pop into my head, I'll open up OneNote on my phone and drop it down on whichever day I need to do it or work on it. That's been really helpful, keeping my mind a little more empty. The other thing is anytime I get, free 10 minutes or something, I'll open my phone and start scrolling social media or Reddit. And I found that a lot of time at night, I'll spend more time than I plan just scrolling. And then my brain is so full of everything that the 1,000 things I just looked at that I started from like 5 o'clock on, just kind of telling myself, okay, no social media, no Reddit, nothing in the evenings. And it's amazing, how much more free your mind is, just only allowing yourself during the day to look at it. The other thing is, as a working parent, you read lots of people talk about, you're juggling 5 balls: work, family, faith, health, whatever the other one is. And work is the rubber or plastic ball. The others are glass. You can drop work and it bounces. Don't let the glass one shatter. But I saw a quote from Nora Roberts where someone asked her about balancing work and home life, and she said it's not 5 balls, it's 55 balls, and some of them are plastic, some of them are glass for both work and home. Silly sock day at school may be a plastic ball, but the Christmas party is glass, whereas with work, this deliverable is glass, but maybe that email can wait till tomorrow and it's plastic. And in my mind, a lot of times all 55 balls are glass. And so working to prioritize those things and understand that some of them are plastic, it's okay to let them fall and bounce. That's been helpful to me as well.
Awesome. Well, I want to thank you both so much for your time today. I really appreciate this. Definitely a little bit of a departure from the standard type of webinar we do. A little more light, but hopefully some people took some great ideas out of this. And even if you just took one thing out of there that saves 10 minutes out of your day, as long as you can do it 6 times, you've made up for the time you invested in this today, right? Math in public, I think I got that right. So, but thanks again so much for your time. Hey, real quick, Alysia, once again, you guys are out of Nashville, and what do you specialize in?
All the security things: pen testing, risk assessments, policies, incident response, tabletop, all those fun things, and Asylas.com.
Perfect. And Brian, you're out of Minnesota.
Yes. And as Patrick in the chat said, winter is coming. It's kind of always coming for us. A lot of risk assessments and pen testing and training. And I'll just put a little plug in for if you like pen testing, or maybe you're just getting into it or want a more practical hands-on time with it. We have a new training, 3-day training that we give you a box with all the tools on it. You walk through all the pen testing things with us, and it's super fun. It's probably the most fun I've had in my professional career. So check it out if that tickles your fancy.
Awesome. And I'll finish it up by saying, hey, if you want to cut down on your reporting time and aggregate your data, PlexTrac Trade for you. We are doing something new that I will plug. We now have an MSSP partner program. So if you're in that space and you're interested in how PlexTrac can be a value add to the services you are providing to your customers, give them a better way of consuming the great work that you're doing for them already, and increase that stickiness factor, check us out. If you go to plextrac.com/MSSP, there's details on that program. So thanks so much, everybody. Thank you so much, Brian. Thank you, Alysia, for being part of this. And I hope everybody has a wonderful day as we come to the top of the hour. Cheers.